our culture and our lands and our assets. And so I just want to I'm just so grateful to have an opportunity to be able to run for board member, and I'm very grateful and amazed at all these wonderful candidates that we have this year. It's very inspiring. I believe that our Education Foundation is working. This is a pretty good testimony to where we're going. And I'm just really honored to be able to given an opportunity to represent you. So thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Next we have Lorena.
Good afternoon. My name is Lorena Sonberg. I'm the eldest granddaughter of Esther and Fred Chernikoff, and I'm the daughter of Jim and Marie Sonberg. I was born here in Kodiak. I was raised in Uzinki, graduated from Uzinki High School, then later went on to college in Anchorage and on to Oregon. I have one brother, Jim Jr., who's the best brother in the world. And I have three sons, Devin and twins Jacob and Lucas. For almost 20 years, I've worked for statewide nonprofit organizations, the last 10 in tribal health. Currently, I work at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. My title is Legal and Intergovernmental Affairs Coordinator. We do policy and funding work for the Alaska Tribal Health System. I'm proud of our culture and who we are as a Native people. I don't ever forget where I come from. I'm a village girl regardless of where I live. Our region has always been important to me, and I'm passionate about our people. I like to be involved. I was a member of the Anchorage Shareholder Committee for 5 years. I'm a board member of the Koniag Education Foundation, and I feel so important for our young people, and sometimes not so young people, to have the opportunity to further their education. In past years, I've served on the Koniag Nominations Committee 4 different times, so I was on the other side of the table, and it's not an easy job. There's so many talented folks who have so much to offer, and it's what we see here today as well. And when I was on the shareholder committee, or the not the shareholder committee, the nominations committee meeting, I always advocated for those who either lived in a village or had a close ties to a village, because I feel that's a very important part of the Koniag Board. And when I feel strongly about something, I tend to become a really good debater. So now this year I was on the other side of the table, and it was and is quite nerve-wracking still, especially when you got to talk about yourself. I was taught to be humble, to put others first, don't be selfish, don't self-promote, so this has been sort of a challenge for me. The board and management of Koniag were doing active recruitment for applicants, and I received a call asking me to consider applying for the board seat. It was very humbling. And if I'm asked to do something, especially by one of our Native leaders, I'm going to do it. And when I wasn't chosen to be part of the management slate, I had the option to bow out. But I'm of the mindset of once you start something, you follow through and see it through the end regardless of the outcome. And that experience becomes a lesson that you learn from. Thank you for your time, and for those who voted for me, thank you for your support.
Next we have Carol.
Good afternoon. You guys are going to have to forgive me. I didn't really write too much. But anyway, for those of you that do not know me, my name is Carol Katalnikoff. I was born and raised here in Kodiak. My parents are Fred and Sophie Katalnikoff. My grandmother was Marina Wasili from Larson Bay. I have recently moved back to Kodiak from Larson Bay. I lived out there for 5 years, involved with the care of my grandmother who passed away a couple years ago. My character is derived from a traditional upbringing: honor, faith, love, trust, and respect. These were the core values that my mother and father instilled in me, and I continue to live with them and utilize them to fulfill my duties as a director. Koniak should remain a vital role towards the involvement of future generations forever. one should always remember their continued involvement by understanding where they came from, which is something I would like to instill as a director. Koniak's management, while it has continued to represent to the best of its ability all the important values that a corporation should instill for the benefit of all shareholders, there is always room for improvement so that all shareholders receive the benefits of an entity fairly and equally. As a member of Larsen Bay Tribal Council, I've yet to see Koniak's continued support of the village of Larsen Bay and Kodiak. In the past, we haven't had very many representatives from that region, and as a shareholder, I would like to hopefully bring the needs of those two communities to the table and instill that their viability remains viable as the other villages and their corporations. My father raised me to believe that we were all created equal and one should respect one another and their differences. The hardships each person encounters does not represent the core values one has, and they should never be judged by their indifferences, but should be embraced, for they were once a vital role in the lives of someone, and their legacies does not die with them, but instead should be honored throughout their existence on this earth and beyond. This is the passion and belief I would bring as a representative of my people and peers. Kodiak is a product of its people, and it should embody the wishes of its people equally and fairly while it continues to develop. It should represent the desires of all members and their descendants for all eternity. The core values of a corporation need to instill a belief that we are all tied to one another. And although the land is important, it is not the only thing we have to sustain our continued growth. We have each other, and if it's not for each and every one of us, Kodiak would not exist. We have a duty to remain viable for generations to come. We also owe a great amount of debt to the existing shareholders now so that they know that their legacies will continue and they will not be forgotten. Time can never be recaptured, but memories last a lifetime. And I would like to incorporate my vision of serving all members with the same respect and honor they all deserve equally and without prejudice. Now this is the questions that I had answered when I fulfilled my nomination papers. I apologize that this is what I wrote, but I hope you guys can envision my hopes for Kodiak in representing you as a director. I'm fairly new to the political scene, although I was a member of the Larsen Bay Tribal Council for 3 years, and the support those villages are receiving, it has declined. And it is my hopes that we as a people can come together to address these issues that these communities are having. Economically, education-wise, we need to stick together when it comes to our beliefs as a people. And as a director, I would like to offer my services to represent all of you equally and fairly. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next we have Margie.
Good afternoon. My name is Margie Gazona, maiden name Nelson. My parents are Alvin and Arlene Nelson. My grandparents are the late John Nelson Sr. and Helen Nelson, who currently lives in Port Lions. On my mom's side, the late Margaret and Richard Rood. I'm an original shareholder that grew up in the village of Port Lions. I feel very fortunate to have grown up in Port Lions. I feel that who I am today is not only from my parents, but my close relationship with my grandparents, the elders, and the community. I have 2 older brothers, Travis and Albert Jr., and currently with my husband Brett, we are raising our 3 boys here in Kodiak. My oldest is 18, he's a freshman at UAA. Ryan is a freshman in high school, and my youngest, a 9-year-old at East Elementary. I have over 15 years experience working for the Kodiak Area Native Association, where I've been dedicated to elevating the quality of life of our Kodiak Native people. I am currently the Senior Vice President out at CANA, where I continue to strategize program growth, operational planning, and guidance, while ensuring the required infrastructure is in place. I also work with our providers and our senior managers, ensuring that they have the tools and resources to provide efficient and effective services to all of you. I'm empowered and have passion for being part of a team, working towards the wellness and betterment of our people, while also strategizing economic development, economic opportunities, and sustaining growth. I would like to thank the Koniag Board and Management for where Koniag is today, and I would be honored and excited to be a part of the Koniag team and helping guide Koniag into the future. I am excited with the thought and opportunity to expand my services to you in a different capacity. I believe that I have a great relationship with you in sharing your perspectives with CANA, and I would like to broaden that and share your perspectives with the Koniag team. I am grateful for all of the services that have been available to me, and I want to ensure that these resources and services are available to your families and mine as well. I have been able to travel around with the Koniag staff, attending the shareholder meetings in different areas. And during this time, I sat for dinner with my family before I left off to one of the trips. And my 9-year-old asked me, "Well, Mom, you already work for CANA. Why are you doing this?" And so I told him, "Well, I'm proud of our corporation, and I want to ensure that the resources continue to grow and sustain, so when you grow up, they will be available to you." And so my 14-year-old said, "Mom, is this like a campaign?" And I told him, "Well, I guess you could consider it that." So he stood up and he said, "Mom, I support your message." For those of you who have supported me, thank you. And I truly would be honored to be a part of the Koniag team. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. Now we have April.
It's probably rare that they have to put the microphone up around here. Chimay, kui April Gale Lactonin Counselor, Abdahat na Ishik, Ilanka Uyaksak Niwat Chali Ahunakmuk. Chimay, hello, my name is April Gale Lactonin Counselor. My Alutiiq name is Ishik. My family are from Larsen Bay and Afognak and probably a few other places around the island. My father is Jerry Lactonin of Larsen Bay and now Granite Falls, Washington. My grandparents are the late Nick Lactonin of Larsen Bay and Alberta Lactonin, now of Everett, Washington. My sisters are Dr. Alberta Lactonin of Anchorage, Larita Lactonin Ward of Anchorage, and Melissa Lactonin of Kodiak. And I am married to Jeremy Counselor with 2 daughters, Emma Gale and Laura. I'm very happy to be running for the board of Koniag. Over my life, I've experienced a lot of benefits from being a Kodiak person and a descendant of Koniag. I received a scholarship for my undergraduate education from the Koniag Educational Foundation, and I was very fortunate to be employed for the past 10 years at the Alutiiq Museum and Archaeological Repository, which receives annual support from Koniag. So I'd like to thank all of you who are here. All of you own Koniag, and therefore all of you own the Alutiiq Museum, and I'm very proud to have been involved in supporting the preservation and revitalization of our language and culture. People have asked me why the Koniag Board. Clearly, my involvement with the Alutiiq language revitalization especially keeps me very busy, and there's yet a lot of work to be done. And clearly, I support the language and cultural revitalization that Koniag has been doing. But that is not the only reason that I'm interested in being on your board. While the heritage is important to our identity, our well-being, and our sovereignty as Alutiiq people, I'm also interested in our corporation as a means of ensuring our future. The lands we own and manage and the financial benefits and employment opportunities for our families are just as important for the future of the Koniag Alutiiq community. These 2 areas, heritage and fiscal growth, are each sides of the coin which together equal the most positive future for our shareholders and descendants. There are a few things that we must do to ensure this. First, we must honor our ancestors and our elders who carry forward the cultural values that have sustained our people for the past 7,500 years. We must solidify and protect our corporation's financial security to guarantee future dividends and shareholder and descendant opportunities. And finally, we must stay on top of new technologies and modes of communication to keep ahead of the market and to also remain relevant to our next generation of shareholders. So I'd like to keep it short and summarize to say that there's a lot of work to be done, but these are exciting times, and I would be honored to serve on your board of directors. Koniag Board of Directors. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, April. And last but not least, we have Perry.
I'm running on a platform of gender balance. Wow. I am awed this year by the quality of the candidates for our board of directors of our corporation. I think they really deserve it. My name is Perry Eaton. I know most of you, and those that don't know me, I'm originally from Uzinki. Family is from Uzinki. My father, Hank Eaton, was heavily involved in the land claims, as those of you remember. I am the only incumbent that's still on the slate, and I'm not sure what that means. Too dumb to retire? I'm not sure. I truly enjoy being a director, representing shareholders, working in a corporation that today is very exciting, very dynamic, with a really strong future, and one that has actually turned back to the island. And that's really meaningful for me, because for me the land is the issue. And without the land, we're not a people. And I remember the days when we had no land. We were not a united people. But today, it's that land that binds us. And we have a lot of opportunities with that. And those opportunities will only exist as long as we hold that land. And I'm an absolute believer that that land should never, ever, under any circumstance, ever be sold. Your current board of directors, I think, and I certainly don't purport to speak for each individual, although I think I can and say that they share that. They share that emotion, they share that connection, and that is where the corporation is. I want to take an opportunity to thank Linda and Lois, our two retiring directors. And you know, it's a privilege to be able to retire when you know you can hand off the reins to these young, bright, upward mobile people that are willing to put in the time to become true directors. And for me, 40 years ago, I remember Jack Wick and I sitting there, 26 years old, debating whether to buy a Xerox or an IBM machine. You know, those heavy decisions. I remember when we asked ourselves, what are we doing? Is there a future? Is there a new generation? Is there a generation coming with a passion and the belief in being people of the island? And today is a really, really important day for me because I heard it. I heard the passion out of every one of the candidates that are here. We are indeed fortunate people. It's a good day. It's a good day. Now, the corporation itself is in excellent condition. However, we're going to retrench. As we begin to focus on the island and our investments here, we're going to retrench. And we're going to refocus and recommit. And we're going to take some steps back in order to go forward. We've brought the corporation to a point where it can pay a reasonable dividend, but not where we want to take it. So I think we're going to step back so that we can take it to the next step. and I think that it's going to be a pretty exciting time for everyone. I'm personally excited. I think that really covers my comments. I truly enjoy it. I appreciate the support that all of the shareholders have given me, the advice that you've given me, the counsel that you've given me, and the encouragement that you've given me over my lifetime. And I treasure that. I value it. And I just want to thank you for that support. Thank you.
So once again, thank all of you for your comments, for being willing to come up and be a candidate. And I just want to point out that by my iPhone, it's now 1:50 and balloting closes at 2 o'clock. We really timed our day so you have a chance to hear the candidates before you cast your ballot. You now have 10 minutes, and so if you haven't submitted your ballot yet, now is the time to do it. You need to go ahead and mark your ballot. The ballot box is out in the foyer, and so I encourage you to do that if you haven't done so already. And so with that, I'd like to excuse the candidates from up front and have Debbie come up to do another round of door prizes. And I'll make an announcement in like 4 minutes, so you know when you have 5 minutes left to get in your ballots. Done a lot of clearing and prep work, and in an effort to get a Pioneer Road built up to one of the upper levels so that we can start drilling down. When you drill, and you have to drill from the top down, and then you blast and excavate. And we've really been working to mitigate the risk of this whole effort. You know, a quarry is not an inexpensive venture. It's very capital intensive. It requires a lot of cash and it requires a lot of upfront cash. You have to, develop the quarry, get it ready for production, and with a little bit of risk, not knowing for sure if you'll actually have customers for that granite. So we've tried to minimize that risk by sliding the development effort kind of to the right into the fall. We intended to do it in the spring, shortly after clearing the timber, but it's just been recently that we've actually started work out there, and that's really a reflection of our desire to do it with as little risk as possible. So to kind of put it into context, here's a map showing the north end of the island, and you can see there's an error on the map here. I actually pulled this map off of Google Maps, and if you look closely on Dry Spruce Island, it says Kodiak Island, and I really can't change that because it's a screenshot I took off of Google. But anyway, in between the villages of Uzinki here and Fort Reliance here is what's often called Rubber Boot. It's just around from Anton Larsen Bay, and it's very strategically located. As if we are serious about helping our rural communities economically, this is one of the best things that we can do, because I can envision residents of Uzinki being the closest, but also Fort Reliance, where you could commute over to the quarry during the day, work all day long, and go home at night. And this isn't a project that's going to be here for 5, 6 years. I see this being a viable venture 100 years from now. I think that long term, this is going to be an anchor of that area. It all depends on our getting contracts for our granite, but the granite itself is there. We did exploratory drilling. We believe there's between 200 million and 1 billion tons of granite there. So it's a tremendous resource, and I think it's something that will really be a great benefit to the region. Here are some quick photographs. This is, you can see some of the trees that have been cleared, and this area up here will eventually be the main quarry face. However, the bay is down here just off the picture. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. But initially, we'll be able to excavate some granite from this lower area as well. But the whole area basically is granite. So here's a shot from a helicopter looking down on this area here. Is going to be like a lay-down sorting area for the granite as it's excavated. Customers require certain size stone. We're going to target the production of large stone in the 30 tons and more. So large granite. But there are byproducts that are produced, and we need to sort it in order to be able to ship the correct size material to a particular customer. So as we speak, this area is being prepared in advance of us going into actual production. At the moment, we have a contractor out there, Anderson Construction. We won't have Koniag employees out there until we enter the production phase. So here's a picture that was taken on September 8th of the initial work on the Pioneer Road. We're actually much further along than this. And here's a shot from the water. You can see quite a bit of equipment there. A lot of excavators and a very large truck to haul the material. And then here's some burning of the brush and all of that. And this is a more recent picture just of the clearing kind of at the beachhead. And we'll be moving material from the hillside down into this sorting yard, so to speak, in the coming weeks. The next initiative I want to talk about is the Kodiak Brown Bear Center. It's a facility that we're developing on Carlick Lake, kind of right in the middle of Carlick Lake. We actually have been working this project for several years. I think it was 3 summers ago we won a Department of Energy grant, and we installed a powerhouse with a solar panel array and some generators to provide power for this facility. And then 2 years ago we put in a lot of the underlying infrastructure, water treatment, sewage treatment, and we did this with the forethought that it will be a facility that will accommodate 24 guests and about 12 staff members. And so we wanted to create the right size systems. We don't want to invest in a system that will accommodate 15 or 20 people, then have to rip it out and put in a larger one at some point in the future. So we've really been very deliberate and forward thinking. One of our values is that we take a long-term perspective, and so we looked out long-term in building out the infrastructure. And it's primarily complete. We're now in a phase where we're building cabins. We've completed 4 guest cabins that are housing guests today. We have guests out there right this very minute. And we've been working this summer to build crew quarters. We want to have nice facilities for our staff to live. I mean, you're out there all summer long, and we want it to be pleasant not only for our guests, but for our staff as well. And even though we haven't done a lot of advertising, in fact, we haven't done advertising at all, we entered this summer with a hope of having 60% occupancy of those 4 cabins, and I'm happy to report that we hit that target. We've actually had a surprising response. It's being recognized as a very unique facility. There's a few people in the audience who have been out there, and it's a remarkable place. And I think it's going to be something that as a people we can be proud of as we have guests from all over the world come there and see what the island has to offer. So here's a few pictures. This is Carlick Lake. It's a very large lake. I think it's the largest lake on the island, I'm pretty sure. I think it's like 22 miles long. It takes a good half an hour by boat to go end to end. It's quite a long trip. And here's a map of the area. Camp Island is kind of right here in the middle of the lake, and we'll have the ability to do bear viewing right here at Thumb River in Thumb Lake, down here at O'Malley. Even though this is not entirely on Koniag land, we own a parcel down here by the river, but the bear viewing platform is actually on Park Service land, not on Koniag land. And then we'll have the ability to do bear viewing at the outlet, with the plan that we would have 8 clients at each place, so 24 clients. And it will provide a very high-quality experience. If any of you have ever been to Brooks Lodge or anything like that, there's a much higher number of guests there, and you're kind of elbow to elbow. And this will provide a very unique experience, and it's one that we think a client is willing to pay a premium for. And so we've been designing the cabins and planning our marketing to go after a European client and Asian client who are willing to pay a significant premium for a very exclusive experience. So here's a conceptual drawing of what the compound will look like when it's done. We've completed these 4 cabins here that you see there, and we've also done, it's kind of hard to see up on the screen here in the auditorium, but these are the behind-the-scenes infrastructure, our water, sewer treatment, our powerhouse, and then there are 3 staff cabins pictured here, and 2 of those 3 have been built. And then we're preparing to build these 2 cabins. We've put in a lot of the footings, and we're trying to build a lot of the basic structure this fall with the intent of coming in when the weather clears and finish it in the early spring so that we're ready to have guests. Having 6 cabins will allow us to have 12 guests. We have 2 clients per cabin. And the operation makes money with 12 clients and loses money with only 6. And so it's important that we at least get to 12 cabins. Then over time, as we get our occupancy up to 90–95%, then we'll look at moving ahead with building out the rest of the plans. An additional 6 cabins here and a nice lodge facility in the middle. And then eventually we want to build a research center. We want to attract the best and brightest minds in the world in areas of fisheries and bear science, so that we can make sure that we protect not only the fishery but do things that protect the bear habitat. So we think it's a great plan, and we're quite a ways along in development. Here are some photographs. These are the 4 cabins we finished. That black walkway is actually a substance called geoblock. It's not ideal, but it allows us to drive heavy equipment over it without creating mud. And so we'll have it that way for a while until we've completed more of the construction. Here's a picture of the interior, and as you can see, it's nice. We have bamboo floors and very comfortable queen-size beds. And it has kind of a subtle European flair. There are a lot of rural and rustic places that you can go in Alaska, and we want to differentiate ourselves. We want to have a unique product, and so we have a little higher-end finishes than you might see elsewhere. Here's a picture of the bathroom. Tile, frosted glass, granite countertops. The finishes are very appropriate, very nice. Here are the 2 staff cabins that when these pictures were taken, the interiors were not finished. We have a contractor out there now finishing the interior, and we actually have some staff staying in them, even though they're not quite done. And then the last thing that we've done this year, we purchased a boat. As I already showed you, it's a very large lake. We get very rough seas. Even though you think the lake, it should be calm. But we get high winds and some rough waters. And our #1 priority is the safety of our staff and our guests. And so even though we have a smaller boat out there, we wanted a larger vessel that we know can handle the conditions on the lake. The worst thing that could ever happen is to lose someone because a boat capsized. So that really motivated us to go with a little larger vessel. Here's a shot of the interior of the cabin. It'll hold 8 people, 6 guests and 2 staff members. And we had a kind of a unique use for this boat in mind. One of the things that we have to do when we do future construction is fly in cement. And what we've had to do up till now is fly in ready-mix cement that has gravel and the Portland cement already mixed together. But we can save a tremendous amount of money by utilizing the gravel resource that's out there. And so this boat was designed to drive it's like a little bobcat onto the boat. We can transport it across the lake, use it to excavate gravel, and haul the gravel back to the island. And it's amazing how much money we can save by doing that. So we built that capability into the boat. But it's a nice setting. Here's a group that was out there early this summer. I was out there in early September. We've done a lot of clearing, planted grass, and it helps keep the bugs down. But it's a magical place. It really is. And for those of you, I hope you noticed that there was a video in the back of your shelter report. There's a lot of footage from Camp Island and the cabins, and so if you haven't watched that video, I encourage you to do so. Go home and look for that DVD. It really is a very well done production, and it's really intended. If you live back in someone's on the web from Texas or California or Oregon, and you've never had a chance to come to Alaska, how do you grasp the incredible of Koniag lands? And we tried to create that video as a way of creating that connection and to see that this land is worth more than what it can be sold for, that it has value both culturally and just in a very deep and sense. And we've already gotten a lot of attention from this. This is a picture of Larry Van Dale, Fred Kotelnikoff, and then the next person over there is Senator Landrieu and Senator Murkowski. Senator Landrieu is from Louisiana. I think she's the chair of the Senate Energy Committee, and then we well know Senator Murkowski. It's kind of funny. I was back in Washington D.C. on July 23rd, and she mentioned almost offhand that she was going to be in Kodiak the following week. And so I said, well, if you're going to be here, you really need to come out to Camp Island. It's a tremendous place. Really want you to see it. And she said, yeah, okay, we'll come out. And I thought, yeah, sure. Yeah, you're just saying that. But in reality, a day or two later, her staff called. We set up the logistics, and she came out and was amazed and really impressed by what we have out there. And I just love seeing a picture of her with our Kodiak Brown Bear Center hat on. So it's perfect. The next area that I want to brief you on is what we're doing on the cultural side. Koniag is a for-profit corporation. We can't deny that. But we're not an ordinary corporation. We have a cultural element that we can't ignore. And while 99% of our focus is on our business operations, we do pay an appropriate amount of attention to our culture. And so some of the things that we've been working on include work in Russia with a couple of museums. One where we've partially funded the production of a catalog of about 560 objects. It was initially done in Russian about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it's just recently available in English. In fact, it's a book that we've been handing out as a door prize. It's available through UAF Press and through the Luigi Museum. It sells for $50. It would have sold for $100, but Koniag and Siri and I think Chugach and one other, Rasmussen, that's right, Rasmussen. We each donated some money, and we were able to get the cost of the book down to $50, which makes it a little bit more affordable. We've also been working on a basketry book. There's a museum. I'll show you a picture here, one picture in a second. We've been working to document objects in the museum there, and we've been looking around the world for other elements of our physical culture that exist outside of Russia. But the book itself, from the Kunstkammer, this is what the books look like in the Russian version, and here's the graphic work for the English version. This is the Russian Ethnography Museum. They have a collection of like 120 baskets, and a lot of diversity in size. They have these little small ones that are maybe 4 or 5 inches tall, which are pictured there, and then much larger ones. Then the museum also has a bunch of other objects, and I'd love to show you a bunch. I showed you a bunch to those that attended the breakout session. I'm just going to show you one single object, and this is a device that was used by the Aleutian people to patch a hole that might develop in your raincoat, in your gut-skin jacket. The way it would work is this little wooden disc, or in some cases ivory, would be placed underneath the tear. You can see where the gut skin is torn, and then it's wrapped around with gut skin, and it creates a seal so that it's watertight again. And we actually debated when we saw these objects, how do we know they're from Kodiak? We really don't have any evidence of that, and we were really unsure. But when we got back to Kodiak, Sven showed the staff the photos, and they remembered having a number of these objects that are exactly the same thing, made out of wood with a groove. You can't see very well up there, but there's a groove around the edge, and so it helps to validate really the effort that we're undertaking. That we're learning objects that we have that we didn't know what they were. They thought maybe they were game pieces or something. Now we know what their purpose is. So it's really, I think, underscores the value of this effort to really learning about our culture. The last thing I'm going to quickly touch upon in the area of culture, Koniag has been working with the museum in Boulogne-sur-Mer, France, the Chateau Musée. That's the museum that holds the 78 masks, that collection there. And we were successful in negotiating a long-term loan of 2 of those masks. They arrived here in Kodiak in early September. These are the 2 masks that are now on display at the Luigi Museum. I encourage you to go and see them. One of the challenges for us is when these objects are located in these faraway places, how do we allow you to connect with them? And one of the ways is with publications, and we're working on those. But it's even better when you can see the objects themselves. And so these 2 masks, this one and this plank mask, will be here for a minimum of 5 years. And then when they're returned to France, the Chateau Musée will replace them with 2 other masts. So the end result is that I hope forever we'll always have at least 2 of those masts from that collection as a resource for our artists and for our young people. So I think it's a great success and very exciting that we're able to do that. The fourth thing that I'd like to cover is what we've done in the area of acquisitions. We recently, several months ago I guess, we closed on the acquisition of a company called Open Systems Technologies. It's a computer-related company in the Midwest. They were founded back in 1997. They have a staff of about 103 people and 55 contractors. Last year they had revenues of $68 million, so it's a substantial company. In fact, this automatically becomes our largest subsidiary. And when we talk about our financial performance, about our growth, this is a way that we can do that. We can achieve that growth. And I'm going to talk in a minute, the next section here, about our strategy. And OST plays a critical role in our strategy. But the challenge here is that to make acquisitions like this, it takes capital, it takes money, it takes cash. And if we're going to keep the company moving forward, we have to be prepared to make investments like this so that we can see that growth down the road. So here's a picture of their headquarters. It's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We have another subsidiary there called Professional Computing Resources. That company is going to co-locate, move into this building, and so it's, from a management perspective, very logical to have both those companies in the same community. Some of the things that they do very briefly, advisory services, managed services, data center solutions, and they create applications for the customers. And the big reason why we acquired them, when you look at, this is a partial list of their customers, big names, Boeing, Lear, like Lear Jets, Bluebird, make school buses, John Deere, make tractors. The only government customer up there is NASA. They are as far removed from our current strategy of government contracting, and I think it's an extremely important component in our ability to kind of change direction with some of the challenges that we've seen in the government contracting world. So that's a great segue into our corporate strategy, and I think when we talk about strategy, I like to put things in context. I like you to be able to see not only where we're going, but where we've been, because it helps set the stage for our future. And in looking back, we were formed as a corporation back in 1972, and in the 40 years since then, I really see us having gone through 3 stages in our development. And I like to think of a corporation as an artificial person that grows and matures like any of us do, and that we go through periods in our lifespan, in our corporate lifespan, where we learn new things and we take on new skills and we move in new directions. And I kind of see our first dozen years or so in existence as kind of a period of early learning. We weren't all that experienced in running large corporations. It was a steep learning curve. We had a lot to take in. And it was marred by a lot of litigation. And the result of all that is that we nearly went bankrupt around 1984. It was very close. In fact, we were able to secure a loan from Arctic Slope Regional Corporation. If it weren't for that, we would have declared bankruptcy in the mid-'80s. So it was a difficult period for us, but we recovered. The next period that I kind of see is from 85 to 95, and that was a period where we recovered, where we had lost all of our initial contributed capital of $24 million. And during this period of very conservative investment, we were mainly passive investors in the stock market, but we were able to struggle and regain all that capital. And as a result, we paid our first dividend once we recovered that capital. It was just $1 per share, but it was an important milestone in our development, in our lifespan. In 1996, we kind of started on a new path up through 2011. I would characterize this period as very rapid growth. We became involved in the 8A contracting world. We started a lot of new subsidiaries, made a lot of acquisitions, and we saw dramatic growth. And I think the key word during this period was diversification. We believe that the best way to ensure that we had steady growth and reliable income was to diversify, and boy did we diversify. We made a lot of different investments, a lot of smaller companies, and that served us well during that period of growth, a period in our life. And to kind of understand how it's manifested in our investment approach, Koniag Development Corporation is our wholly owned subsidiary that manages all of our business activities. And when you look at all the companies that it manages, there's a bunch. I mean, and I'm not even sure that's all the logos. Let me look at that. Yeah, I think we're missing Koniag Information Security Services, so they're not all up there. And a lot of these companies are smaller. Some of them are in the $2, $3, $5 million revenue area, and it really creates a lot of challenges for us. How do you manage such a diverse company when none of the elements really are that substantial? And I think that while it helped us transition into being a savvy and capable manager of business operations, it creates challenges for us for growth. In fact, if you look at our financial performance over the last few years, I see us as hitting something of a plateau. And the reason for that plateau is because there are limitations to growth when you pursue this strategy. But we need a new strategy because our shareholder demographics are changing. That we're seeing the average shareholder having fewer and fewer shares. We have shareholders with less than one share. And when we pay a dividend, if you get a $1, $2, $5 check in the mail, is that enough for you to turn in your proxy, for you to be engaged, for you to pay attention? And I would argue that in a lot of cases it's not, and it creates challenges for us for reaching quorum, for keeping people involved, for getting people to run for the board. I think that in the future, if we don't change our strategy, that it's going to create problems for the corporation. So we need to break out of this plateau. We need to come up with a different strategy that allows us to get back on that growth curve that we were seeing 4, 5, 6 years ago. So 2011 forward, and I say 2011 because this is actually a strategy that the board approved last year. This is something that isn't just spur of the moment right now. This has been in the works for more than a year, and we've been working as a management team to make this new strategy a reality. And our new strategy is really focused on moving away from diversification to some extent. We still want to have some diversification, but that we want to narrow our focus, to have fewer industries in which we operate, but to have more substantial operations within those fewer industries. And from a management perspective, that's much easier to deal with. And this new strategy really has two really core concepts. The first being that we need to really understand where we hold or where we lack a sustainable competitive advantage. And the idea of a competitive advantage is important, because if you don't have an advantage, then your only way to compete is by price. And this is something that we often see in the government contracting world, where the margins on your contracts are minimal. Sometimes they're 3, 4%. It's very difficult to be highly profitable when your only way to get a contract is to cut your price. So this is probably an essential element of our strategy. And then once we understand where we have those advantages, then we need to develop internal expertise in those areas, not just at the management level. As executives, we need to understand every detail of those industries that we're involved in, but we also need to make sure that our board of directors is also well informed, they understand the world in which we operate, and that they're able to make really good decisions with respect to those investments. And just so you understand, when I talk about fewer core sectors, I want to make sure you know what it means when we talk about a core sector. So we've defined it as an industry in which we're able to scale up to at least $100 million in gross revenues. So that would exclude us from seeking investments in a little mom-and-pop operation that maybe makes $1 million or $2 million in revenue, because we can't afford to focus our attention on something that small. We need to look for those enterprises that are substantial and put us really in a different field. And then it needs to be a sector in which we hold a competitive advantage. that warrants the building of executive talent and allows the board to become educated. So that's the criteria that we have to meet when we look at our core sectors. So the Koniag Board, after considering all of this, at a strategic planning session about a year ago, adopted a strategy that focuses Koniag on 3 industries that meet those definitions. The first one being marine construction, the second being aerospace manufacturing, and then finally naval marine services. And I'm going to cover these in detail here in the next slide. So marine construction, and I really want to tie this clearly in your mind to our granite quarry. That I believe that our ownership of that granite quarry creates a number of very important advantages for Koniag. First of all, we'll have a pricing advantage. We didn't put out cash for the granite itself. It was conveyed to us as a result of ANCSA. So our dollars invested in the granite itself is 0. And then we have an advantage in a tax perspective that I don't want to go into details on taxes, but we get this depletion allowance. We get a tax break as if we paid market price for that granite. And so in a lot of ways, that granite can be developed tax-free to us. So that's a big advantage. And then the third, we have a logistical advantage because our granite is at tidewater. A lot of our competitors, we're competing with granite quarries around the world. They're oftentimes located inland where their highest costs are trucking. It's very expensive to load granite onto a big truck and haul it to a job site. But by having this at tidewater, it's much easier for us and cheaper for us to get this to a dock project or a levee project on a waterway, and we can ship this quite a long ways and still be very competitive. We're looking at marketing this product for projects down in Oregon. It's economical for us to do that, so it's important. And then in operating this quarry, we don't want to follow the model that we followed so far. KDC doesn't actually manage any of our operations, our subsidiaries. They oversee the management teams, but they themselves, that team doesn't actually manage those subsidiaries. In this case, we want to change that because we want to develop the internal knowledge, the expertise. We don't want to rely upon others. We don't have to rely upon advisors. That we want to know how to operate a quarry. And the only way you can do that is operating it yourself. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we want to start with that granite quarry, but we want to use that, leverage it to capture the profit. It's called vertical integration. We want to be the ones that transport it. We want to be the ones that design the dock project. We want to be the ones that place that material on site. We don't want to just make a few dollars on the granite and smile at ourselves. We want to make sure that we use that to our advantage. When we pursue a contract, we can, oftentimes those contracts are won by the thinnest of margins. You just underbid the other contractor by a little bit and you get that contract. We will have the ability to be more aggressive in getting those contracts and still earn significant profits from those jobs. So we think that this is really the cornerstone of our strategy. The challenge, though, is that developing a granite quarry is not cheap. It takes money to do the development that we're doing now, and to build those roads, and to buy the barges, and acquire construction companies and engineering firms, and it's quite a challenge, and it's one that management and the board is focused on. The next area that we're looking to build on is aerospace manufacturing. This is an area where we've actually had an investment for quite some time. We own a company in Port Angeles, Washington called Angeles Composite Technologies Incorporated. And the thing about aerospace manufacturing is that if you decide you wanted to become an airplane part producer, you couldn't just start doing it and start selling it. There's this certification process, regulations, because airplane parts can't fail. And so there are a lot of barriers to entry, not only from the equipment side. You have to have the tooling, and for composites you have to have now my mind just went blank. The The autoclave, thank you. You get going up here, and my brain was occupied elsewhere. But so this is another area that I think that creates a competitive advantage for us. We already have a presence in the market, and it's hard for others to break into that market. And we're quite unique. I don't think there are any other minority-owned aerospace manufacturers, and a lot of the big, like Lockheed and Boeing, they have quotas that they have to meet to give work to small disadvantaged businesses, and we're tailor-made for that. We're able to help them check that box in their contracts, so it's a tremendous advantage, and we think it's an area where we can do quite well. So we're going to continue to build endless deposits, make it grow, and we think that without acquiring any of the companies, we can grow to 100 million over the coming years. But that doesn't mean we don't have to make any investment. In order to grow to 100 million, we have to pump cash into it. We have to make additional investments in facilities and equipment, because you need those in order to produce revenue. The third area that we're looking at being present in further is Naval Marine Services. We've owned a company called Claris Technologies, and they split into a second company called Claris Fluid Intelligence. And they've been able to develop some very specialized skills in providing service to the Navy, the Coast Guard, doing work on aircraft carriers and submarines. And to the point where a lot of the processes that the Navy writes into their maintenance procedures are built around what Claris does. And again, they're specialized equipment, and we believe that because of that, we can keep our competitors at bay, we can earn that higher than normal profit margin, and be very successful in this arena. So we intend to build on the strong growth that we've already seen with Claris. They have their headquarters in Bellingham, Washington, but they have operations in California and Virginia. They have facilities there. They have a warehouse and offices in California and Virginia. And they've done work in Hawaii and in Japan and in the Middle East. And we really think that they can continue that growth. But there are limitations to what they can earn in the maintenance world based upon some of their specialized skills. And so we're looking to take their reputation and take their very innovative mindset and apply that into other areas of the Navy maintenance world. And so one of the things we're looking at is tank cleaning. How can we grow this to that 100 million mark? And to do that, we'll have to expand. We'll have to make additional investment. And but we think that this sector can do that for us. Now, I said earlier that we had 3 core sectors, and here I am talking about a 4th sector. And information technologies is an area that we've actually been very active in. We've been doing IT work in government contracting for a long time. We've done work for the Social Security Administration and a lot of other big government agencies. But the problem is that because it's 8A dependent, it doesn't meet that criteria of a sustainable competitive advantage. That 8A has a limited life, and you're competing on price as much as anything else. So we don't consider this core, at least not up until a few months ago. But we want to look at ways to develop an advantage. We do have a lot of skills that we've developed in the IT world, but how do we move away from a reliance upon government contracting? And that's through that investment I just told you about, Open Systems Technologies. It was a great purchase for us because it creates more balance in that industry for us. And when you think about it, last year they were at 68 million. Our goal was to grow it to 100 million. So maybe we'll start considering this a core sector, because with that acquisition, it really puts us in a different place. It allows us to compete in a different way. But in that area of 8A contracting, this is something that the board really spent a lot of time discussing, because we built our growth on 8A from the 90s, but we really believe that 8A can't be our core focus. There's just too much scrutiny aimed at 8A right now, a lot of criticism. There's a senator from Missouri, her name is Claire McCaskill, and she's had us in her cross